Hi, Bother Brigade. Here's what's bothering me today. We need to talk about Ukraine a little bit because there have been some recent developments that have been making a little bit of noise on social media, but it's something I'm not really hearing about in most kind of large traditional like legacy media, if you want to call it that. And that has to do with some rather undemocratic actions taken in Ukraine. Now, again, gonna say this right at the start. I am not in favor of Russia invading Ukraine. I think it's a really terrible thing that they feel entitled to Ukraine as part of their geostrategic, interests. Let's call it that. But that being said, as I said in like a video I made like well over a month ago at this point, it's not exactly like Ukraine is all sunshine and roses. So let's go back in time to 2019 when we start to see some interesting developments. Actually, you know what? No, we should actually go back to 2014 and again the unjustifiable actions of the Russians basically seizing Crimea and creating the Donbass insurrections pretty much. So in the wake of that is when you had, again, massive political upheaval in Ukraine that leads to the current president, Vladimir Zelensky. Now, while he was on his way in, the previous president, Petro Poroshenko, implemented a Ukrainian language law, basically. Ukraine passes language law, irritating President-elect and Russia. This was a language law that basically made Ukrainian the mandatory only language that could be used in like the civil service sector, and I think in like the medical sphere and like soldiers. It was a whole bunch of different areas. And why this actually grated against Zelensky at the time is Zelensky, for the most part, spoke Russian when he was in public. And for those unaware, Ukraine very much exists along a linguistic dichotomy. Western Ukraine speaks Ukrainian, Eastern Ukraine, and also I guess Southern Ukraine, they tend to speak Russian. And so a lot of TV in Ukraine is bilingual. People would be on programs and, someone would ask a question in Russian and someone would answer in Ukrainian and vice versa. Many people were and still are functionally bilingual in the two languages. So that happened in 2019 as, people were beginning to push back against the Russian sentiments in the East and what they felt as a Russian attack on their territorial integrity, which I mean, yeah. But this is how, bad stuff starts, right? So between the actions in 2014 and then the language law in 2019, there was something else that happened in 2021. In risky move, Ukraine's president bans pro-Russian media. So he banned at least 3 at the time channels that were accused of spreading Russian propaganda. How valid is this? Well, it's a little valid and in some other cases tenuous at best, but it was still seen as something that was popular and necessary because, come on, Russia's already occupying eastern part of our country. True. And the Kremlin has a vested interest in what kind of message they want to get out to people. Also true, as we're still seeing to this day. But that's just sort of showing how this stuff kind of builds, right? And if you're wondering what I mean by this stuff, well, that brings us to 2022. Ukraine suspends 11 political parties with links to Russia. Zelensky says parties such as Viktor Medvedchuk's Opposition Platform for Life are aimed at division or collusion. Now, that last one is actually important because I'm pretty sure that Medvedchuk guy actually is an oligarch with ties directly to Putin. So there is that. However, the idea of banning opposition parties is kind of problematic, right? He recently banned 11 parties, but spoiler alert, it's actually now bringing the total up to 18. 7 other ones, which were definitely way more like pro-Russian, were banned in the lead up to this. By the way, the communists were also banned, even though Russia isn't and hasn't been a communist country for nearly as long as I've been alive. So keep that in the back of your mind. And then there was this development that I have seen some traction on in the past few days. Citing martial law, Ukraine president signs decree to combine national TV channels into one platform. Basically citing the whole, we need to have a unified message out there because, it's martial law and we have this war going on. We need to combat the years of Russian misinformation, and now there's an actual war going on with the Russians. So come on, desperate times call for desperate measures, right? And on some level, all of this stuff is understandable, right? Well, yeah, I mean, look, Russia did invade. They just took Crimea from us, and they're causing problems in the Donbass, and now we're in an actual war with them. And meanwhile, these traitors in the parliament have been saying, no, maybe we shouldn't be all, sunshine and roses with Europe and the West. And, Russia's our friend. We have so much shared history with them. How dare they? That's evil. That's bad. Look at all the problems Russia is causing. And that's not wrong, right? But look at what has been happening since 2014 out of anger, desperation, vengeance, whatever is motivating it. It is what's leading up to a not exactly free and democratic media and political system. And this isn't even to say anything of the various reports of torture and beatings and lynchings basically that have been happening allegedly in various parts of Ukraine. How verifiable are these? Not much, which is why I didn't really want to bring them up. But these are at least things that we are hearing about. And those just don't start at random overnight for no reason at all. This is something very insidious and dangerous that is going on in Ukraine, no matter how you feel about Russian aggression, which again, right, I get why the Ukrainians would be mad about that. But banning opposition parties, whether they have ties to Russia or not, and it just serves a very convenient cover and purpose for getting rid of your opposition. And crucially, the opposition parties that were banned, he didn't ban any of these, say, more fascist-leaning parties or the militias or anything like that. So that should be of concern to people. And then again, the more recent development of we have to basically make it so that all TV stations and everything is unified for the purpose of messaging, which is a fancy way of saying state propaganda. So no, we aren't exactly seeing a flourishing of democracy in Ukraine right now, which makes the whole idea of, we're defending Ukraine because democracy versus evil Russia. As I said in that video months ago, it's at the start of the Ukraine-Russia conflict playlist that I have on this channel. Neither side is really a good guy in this conflict, which makes it all the more depressing and unfortunate. But what's especially unfortunate today, right now, is the further erosion of democracy and free media that Ukraine had. I understand why a lot of people would support that. But the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? No one really, at least not many people, would want to openly vote for and support fascism until you wake up one day and realize, oh, whoops, it's a little late to go back from that. That is the genuine fear that is potentially unfolding before our very eyes in Ukraine right now. These developments over the past few years are not really the developments of a proper, free, and democratic country. It should concern a lot more of us, and it should be bigger news in the media, but sadly it isn't, and that's what's bothering me today.